Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone. I would like to say thank you for coming in my research proposal seminar. It's great to see you all. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Melani Pebrianti. My student's registration number is 2117013. I'm so grateful to examiner, advisor, and audiences for coming in my research proposal seminar. In this change, I would like to present about the correlation between vocabulary mastery and the ability in translating English text to the 6th semester students of English department at STKIP-PGRI Lubuklinggau. For the first, we are going to chapter 1, Introduction. Background. When the students want to translate some text, they must have ability in vocabulary mastery. Therefore, based on the interview between the researcher and the lecturer at STKIP-PGRI Lubuklinggau, it found that the students still think that translation is difficult because they are lack of vocabulary and doesn't master grammar very well. The researcher chose the subject 6th semester students as the subject because they have studied about translation subject. So, based on the phenomenon above, the researcher interested to conduct this title for research proposal. And then next, formulation of the problem. Formulation of the problem in this research is there any correlation between vocabulary mastery and translating English text to 6th semester students of English department at STKIP-PGRI Lubuklinggau? And point C, the scope of this research. In this research, there are two scopes. For the first is the subject. The subject is 6th semester students of English department at STKIP-PGRI Lubuklinggau. And then the correlation will be focused on translation and vocabulary mastery. Next, the objective of the research. The objective of the research is to find out the correlation between vocabulary mastery and the ability in translating English text to 6th semester students of English department at STKIP-PGRI Lubuklinggau. And the last point is the significances of the research. There are 3 significances in this research. For the first is for students. This research will motivate students to encourage and learn more about English by improving their vocabulary. And then the next is for teacher. This research will useful for teacher to develop their method in teaching vocabulary that related to the translation text. And then for the next is for researcher. It will be useful for the researcher as their research and their source. For the next is chapter 2, literature review. Theoretical description. First is what is correlation? Correlation is connection between two or more things. According to chart 4, 2014 on page 11, correlation research design as one of descriptive research design used to measure the relationship between two or more variables. The object in correlation can be influences and causes the other. And then next is the concept of vocabulary mastery. Vocabulary mastery is easier than master other components such as grammar or phonological. According to Norbert 2014 on page 194, vocabulary is a basis of language. It is very important to master it because we cannot speak well and written and understand written material if we don't have vocabulary. And then there are 2 kinds of vocabulary. For the first is passive vocabulary, refers to words that students will recognize them when they meet them, but the students cannot be able to use it. And then the second is active vocabulary, refers to vocabulary that students have learned it and the student able to use it. And then next is definition of translating. According to Chadford, translation may be defined as replacement of textual in language or source language by equivalent textual material in another language or target language. Translating is very important for everyone, including students, because when the students want to comprehend the text, they must translate the text. And then the last is types of translating. According to Chadford, 1965, on page 21 until 25, there are three kinds of translating. For the first is extant translating. There are two kinds in extant translating. It is full translation and partial translation. And then the next is level translating. In level translating, there are two kinds: total translation and restricted translation. And the last kind is rank translating. In rank translating, there are two kinds: rank bound translation and unbounded translation.
Yeah.
Well, next is chapter 3, method of the research. A. Research design. Research design. The researcher will use quantitative approach. According to Hornby, 1995, on page 135, states that quantitative is connected to the amount or number of something rather than with how good it is. And then the subject of the research is 6th semester students of English department at STKIP-PGRI Lubuklinggau. And point B, population and sample. Population is the whole object of the research, and the population in this research is 6th semester students of English department. There are 90 students. And then next is sample. In this research, the researcher will use random sampling by choosing from each class. Next is technique for collecting the data. In this research, the researcher used tests for collecting the data. There are two kinds of tests: vocabulary test and translation test. For vocabulary test, the researcher will use multiple choice. There are 40 multiple choice items. The researcher choose multiple choice because multiple choice item is the most commonly used to types in objective the test. And then next is translation test. The researcher will provide some text to the students, such as report text, as the translation test, and then the student will translate the text. And the last point is technique for analyzing the data. There are two steps in analyzing the data. For the first is statistical data analysis. In this part, the researcher will calculate using description data. For example, calculate mean, modus, and median, and then next calculate normality test, and then next calculate linear regression. And then for the next step is using coefficient correlation. In this research, the researcher will make hypothesis by using coefficient correlation. There are two kinds of hypothesis. It is alternative hypothesis or HA and null hypothesis or HO. HA will say positive correlation, and then HO will say no positive correlation. Okay, that's all about my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.